Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very excited to be here in this pivotal session, AI ethics, global governance. And not only that, in this session that we are complete panelists, distinguished panelists from academia, policy, industry, and professionals. All right. Before I start with the introduction and the Q&A, I would like to invite you on one simple question. Have we checked ourselves to copy of our certain data or information into a particular LLM? That is something that probably most people don't realize that is how it will take effect. And it is related to the data ethics, yeah, data privacy ethics, because not only involving about our privacy, personal information, but sometimes to simplify of the to obtain or to generate the specific outputs, we make copy from document or link or something to generate from the particular LLMs. So here we are. We can start with the introduction starting from Pak Eric. Okay, Pak Eric.
Ya, good afternoon, Bapak Ibu sekalian. Ya, my name is Budi Pratama. Usually people call me Eric, or in community people call me Prof. Eric. Yeah, I'm Vice Chairman of AI and Personal Data Protection in KAN Indonesia. I'm also advisor in several companies, conglomerates, and also strategic government function in Indonesia. Yeah, and also for the background itself, yeah, my experience mostly on cybersecurity, privacy, and AI governance. Thank you, Pak Joko.
All right. To the next distinguished panelist, we have a professor. Please.
Okay, my name is Professor Yudo Giri Sundayo. I'm from the Faculty of Computer Science, Universitas Indonesia. More details, just visit my LinkedIn.
Very simple, ya, Pak. Okay, to the next one.
Okay, my name is Dian Martin. I'm chairperson of AI User Association. Following Prof. Yudo, please visit my LinkedIn also. Thank you.
Great. So I'm Andres Chandra. If you would like to know more, check the LinkedIn as well.
Well, actually, I'm impressed with all these panelists because actually not only on display their position, they are taking more strategic position at the public and private companies. So I proceed to check their LinkedIn as well. Okay, let's moving forward to our first question to Pak Eric first. Pak Eric, the Indonesia Personal Data Protections (PDP) law is just enacted in October 2022. Do you see current regulation as adequate to address emerging AI risks like deepfake, disinformation, and also synthetic identifier fraud and unauthorized biometric extractions? Would you like to give a perspective for our audience?
Yeah, thank you. So before I answer the question, so previously, yeah, before I and Mas Andreas joined Komdigi AI National Roadmap team, I'm the subject matter expert of Komdigi for data protection (PDP) law. So I'm involved in the regulation drafting from the technical regulation. Yeah. So after PDP law in October 2022 enacted, I'm involved in the peraturan presiden, ya, presidential regulations as the technical regulation for the PDP. So back to the questions. Basically PDP law, ya, UU number 27, ya, and also the next peraturan presiden, if we see it as the foundational for the AI regulation, it is sufficient. Yeah, sufficient. Yeah. But as we know that Komdigi and with the team, yeah, with the AI National team, we are proposing also in the future we have the regulations. That's why maybe there will be certain level of regulation for the AI. But today I talk with BSSN, ya, Badan Siber dan Sandi Negara. So as we know that BSSN currently collaborate with Komdigi and Ministry of Law is in progress to draft the RUU KKS, Keamanan dan Ketahanan Cyber, so Cyber Security and Resilience Act. Yeah. So in these regulations, the one that I know just today, Komdigi will enforce the AI governance, ethics, and security on the regulations. So this is my core competence about AI security. I'm very interested because if we see the regulation from GDPR, from the Europe, so UPDP is adopted from GDPR, European GDPR. As we know that European Union has EU AI Act, which the regulation is very strict, and it will limit the innovation basically. But our team, in national team already proposed that okay, maybe in the future Komdg will not take 100% from EU because we heard that EU will loosening their strength their strict rules of the regulations. That's why if we want to create like undang-undang for AI, it will take a long time. Yeah. But what we can propose in the near time is we include AI ethics, governance, and security in our upcoming undang-undang for cybersecurity and cyber resilience. Yeah, I think this is Pak. So if we come back for the case like deepfake, synthetic data, and etc. So I think it will be back to our self. Why? Because the regulation if you know how we create regulation. So undang-undang regulation or peraturan pemerintah PP is not regulated technically. So the technicality will be enforced by the sectoral, it's of sector. For example, financial service, OJK will create certain standard. Maybe for another sector, Komdg will help to create certain standard. So to mitigate the risk of the deepfake and etc. So if we see the regulations as the foundational, PDP law is sufficient as the basic. But we need more strict regulation. For example, like when we develop AI system, at least we have to do like AI impact assessment. So this is in PDP law is mandatory. So if you have the high risk personal data processing, you have to do data potency impact assessment. But in AI, I believe that in the future, Komdg will enforce the company if you process high risk processing or high risk data or high risk AI system, you have to conduct AI impact assessment. So the purpose is to mitigate this kind of risk like the deepfake and etc. But since deepfake and static data etc. will not only affect the company and but it also affect the individual like us. So I think it's very important about iteration or socialization. So I already talked to BSSN, also the Komdg team, to involve all stakeholders like associations or companies or private sector to spread the awareness because as we know that maybe in this year the government doesn't have enough budget for non-core activities like socialization, training, etc. But we are in the associations especially me in Kadin we are willing to support this initiative so to spread the awareness about how we have to keep our data to prevent the upcoming advanced cyber attack like deepfake, synthetic data, and etc. So this is what.
Okay, just a little bit more thing. Maybe you can add how Indonesia regulation for ethical AI to benchmark with the global governance, because as you said that we adhere to the EU, right? So how do we go for the to foster with the benchmark strategy for Indonesia? Just a little bit, Pak.
Thank you, Pak. So as I said that Indonesia PDP law basically adopted from EU GDPR. If I can say almost 70 until 80% we copy paste from GDPR. But the problem is the majority of privacy understanding between Indonesia people and European people is different. So we are still lower. That's why people mostly say that PDP law is very hard to comply. But if you live in Europe, I think it's not that complicated basically. And also it is similar with AI. So for AI, as I know, Komdg and OJK already released their ethics guideline for AI for now. But I believe it's not enough. So what we want to propose is after the team complete this task force or the output already developed by Komdg later, hopefully there will be at minimum perpres peraturan presiden to regulate AI, and then it will back to each of the sector.
Alright.
So we will depend on the OJK for financial service, OMDG for the telco, and maybe for the like the mining and gas, maybe from the SDM, Kementerian SDM. Yeah.
Alright.
So I think it's more on the sectoral.
Yes.
For the AI. Yeah, and also important thing is, Pak. So for the AI case, I think it is a bit different with PDB. So PDB we start with regulation, but AI we will start with use case.
Yes.
So the regulation or the policy will follow what is the best use case in Indonesia that can support government vision. Like for example, like support RPJMN, Astacita, and Indonesia Mas 2045. Like that.
Alright.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ferry. And we go to our next speaker, Professor Rido.
Okay.
Okay. From your dual advantage point as a academia and also a fintech, how do you assess the readiness of Indonesian curriculum and research funding to support ethical by design and financial technologies? As you can see that it is also important for the research investment, not only standing by the loan themselves. So the time is yours.
Okay, thank you so much. Glad to be invited by World AI Show. Now, one of the reasons why this session is full house, including the morning session and maybe for tomorrow's session, is actually we know that Indonesia is a very big country and we are the market. Now, the question is whether the market is actually played by Indonesian or actually played by somebody not Indonesian but use Indonesia simply as the market. And we know that the number of talents supplied by the university or also other informal education is not enough to fulfill the Indonesian need in terms of AI. University, a good university must always follow the international curriculum. As in my case, Faculty of Computer Science, Universitas Indonesia, we always periodically refresh our curriculum to meet the ACM curricula or IEEE curricula, etc. But you know, complying with the international curriculum is one thing, but having enough resources, including the lecturers, including the hardware, you know how strong the hardware resource we need to fulfill the course, etc., is actually still not there yet. So now, question is that next year our faculty will open a new study program on artificial intelligence, and it's a long process. But the job of university is actually to give a strong background to the student. So later, once he or she graduates, then he or she will have enough background to absorb the latest knowledge and the latest technology. Sometimes industry wants to ready-made graduates that 100% ready to do their job tomorrow, just graduate today. But unfortunately, the work is not an idea like that. So still, the industry need to do onboarding mechanism. Still, the industry need to have a training and education. But having a good, strong graduates is actually very good so that they can learn the latest technology. At the end of the day, the curricula will actually always lag behind the technology. But I always say to my students, once that you feel that you have enough knowledge already, that's actually the death of your career. Because in AI, in IT or in AI, you need to be a long life learner. Maybe only 10 or 20% of the education that you got from the university will be good or will be used in the work job or in the field work. So that we need to be a fast learner, we need to be a long life learner, etc. Now, question about research. Simply, you know, the research fund here in Indonesia from the government, it won't be enough. Not to mention that the expensive price of the other resources, etc. But nowadays, with so many industries coming to Indonesia, lecturers or a university not need to rely not only on the government spending or the government budget of research, but we can also collaborate with the industry itself. Now, I need to say thank you to the one of Unicorn Tokopedia who already gave their machine to my faculty several years ago, and still not enough. And then from the grant from the government, we got another budget to buy the GPU, but still it's still not enough with the current research. So at the end, as for now, we have already got 3 big machines, GPU in our faculty, still not enough for our research, and we still need to buy from outside. So collaboration between the university and the industry simply to make a win-win situation so you can get our talent, but please help us also to form to shape our students so that they will be ready for your job. Now about the ethical, from the technology perspective, actually we simply just develop the technology, but as any kind of technology, there is always bad side and there is always good side. Now it's up to us. Yes, the government need to regulate, but at the end of the day, regulation must also at some point make the industry also to grow. So if let's say the regulation itself restrict lots of our innovation, that it will not be good as well for our country. As an example, like GDPR, whether it's good, yes, all of us agree it's good, but you can also see that some industry in Europe itself, they are actually struggle to comply with the DORA, to comply with the NIS2, to comply with the GDPR itself. So at some point, we also need to localize, we also need to see the situation in Indonesia. Please do not think that I'm not agree with the regulation. Still, it needs to be there to maintain the ethical, to maintain the ecosystem, etc. But at the end of the day, it has to be balanced. So by some, the government can also protect the community, can protect the citizen, but industry can also grow from that.
All right. So I conclude that the collaboration, you open for the collaboration and also the investment from the external party, as well as the probably sandbox is one of the key to solve of this challenge.
Yes. So as a member of the ethical committee in Indonesia FinTech Association, AFTEC, I agree with you. At the moment, we have identified more than 26 business model on FinTech, and not all of them are already regulated by the government. So some kind of regulatory sandbox is actually necessary for that.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Pak Professor. So we are proceeding to our next distinguished speaker, Pak Dian. Given the growing accessibility of highly capable open source large language models, how should regulators, developers, and users collaborate to balance innovation and responsible deployment? Specifically, what strategy can be employed to prevent from the out-of-the-box prompt, which is currently nowadays are spreading out to endangers of the generating specific outputs? Time is yours, Pak.
Yes, suddenly my mind is thinking something. How to create a bomb, something like that. So maybe from a technology point of view, there are several techniques. For example, AI filtering, like constitutional AI that is used by Anthropic. But maybe I would like to discuss another perspective on this one. What if the problem is not just about technology? What if the problem is about the race behind it? We all right now are in the race toward AGI, Artificial General Intelligence. And Noah Harari said in his latest book, Nexus, he said that this is for the very first time in our history, we are facing a revolution where machines can decide by themselves. Even the Geoffrey Hinton, the godfather of AI, also have the same view with Harari. This changed everything. AI no longer considered as a tool. AI now an actor, become an actor in our world. So when this AGI will happen, some predictions say that within 1 year or 2 years from now, there will be breakthrough. in AI mathematician and AI super programmers, where AI will continuously improving himself. Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google, actually making this prediction. And then the futurist Ray Kurzweil, he said that the AGI will come about around 4 years from now, 2020. So this is very interesting. And in any kind of race, there is fear. Fear of being slow, fear of missing out, fear of left behind. No one wants to become the second. Everyone wants to become the first. Because as the saying goes, the winner takes all. In the semiconductor industry, where the market cap is 7.7 trillion US dollar, only one company who can create the lithography system, ASML from Netherlands. So no one wants to become the second. Everyone wants to become the first. In the drive to become the first, the duty to be safe is not so important sometimes, right? So maybe, the solution is not about the safer models. Maybe the solution is about the more informed society. So we need to give more information to society about the whole range of AI, the full benefit. We know that right now there is a racing, the racing to be 1% unicorn. Right now, people are not bragging that I have 1,000 team members. Now the bragging is I have 20 members and my company is unicorn. That is also a benefit of AI. But we need to see all spectrum. So I think we need more information. People need more information about AI. The threat of only come from the people, but from the machine itself. Because right now, we don't know what the AI is thinking. Not even a single person understands how AI thinks about something. This is very interesting. Never happened in the human history. And then we think that we need to spread the information. Regulator, I'm happy. Tadi Pak Erick bilang bahwasanya regulators lagi thinking about the rules, about this one, about the faith. But another is also important. And the education institution not only think about how to use AI, but to think how to still thinking critically, become creative, and not losing our humanity. And then, for everyday people, they need to be more informed. They need to understand their power as user and as citizen. I will end my reply, my answer with the quotation from Sam Altman. He said, the scariest part is not the AI becomes smarter. The scariest part is we might be not ready when it comes.
All right, thank you. So we highlight that the importance of the human-centered and training program continuously to develop the sustainability for the development of AI itself. All right. Thank you for your perspective, Pak Dian. And we go proceed for our next distinguished panelist, Andreas. Andreas, given your experience advising both ministries and industries, because you also taken several strategic positions in Indonesia, how do you reconcile the conflicting priorities between rapid AI adoption for competitiveness and the slower pace of policy needed for responsible development? Because nowadays that people think that the old pace of the innovation is much high in a high state rather than the regulation itself. So please, could you share with us and the context of data sovereignty as well? How can Indonesia ensure that AI models deployed by local business and imported from abroad comply with the ethical data practices? Thank you, Pak Andreas. Time is yours.
Great, thank you. So it's true. AI is kind of a scary thing. It's bringing good things and bad things at the same time. It provides a weird dichotomy. So, in fact, in Indonesia, we have been part of four industrial revolution, but we already late for the first three. So what happened was we are in the part of AI industrial revolution, which in hindsight, AI has always been transforming our life in a much better aspect. So there's always been a holy grail in AI, which AI has always been faster, better, and cheaper. But we just need two out of those. So the problem was, as an Indonesian, me, I love something that's free, which is kind of like a lot of disparity between the better, cheaper aspect and the better and faster aspect. So with AI has been prominent in our activities, AI has been used in a much more stochastic manner. So it repeats, it provides a large knowledge basis. So for hindsight, let's take example that Prof. Yudo Giri is an investor. So if you create Prof. Yudo goes to the market, the image probably will result to financial market to the stock market. But if I was a restaurant owner or the seafood market, it will create into traditional market or seafood market. So because in Indonesia we have this 98% which are MSMEs, those 2% are mostly coming from the large lot empowerment, which is BFSI, which had a lot of credit scoring, deepfakes, frauds, which is happening every day. So what happened was our policies cannot be stick and carrots, which is not good for the 98% MSMEs. It cannot provide also the carrots to the MSMEs because it has always been this divide. In fact, there's something called AI divide. So we realized into much more of kind of like moderate soft policy, which garner the effectiveness of the publicness, which is the 98% MSMEs, and the 2% are mostly for banks. Why is this important? Because we realize AI has been used back before ChatGPT. So our first AI was used for earthquake predictions. In fact, we have 6,000 earthquakes annually, which is staggering numbers. In 2023, we have 10,789 earthquakes. Why is this important? Earthquakes relates to what's called for Indonesia, sandang, pangan, papan, which is clothing, housing, and food security. Those we need AI to predict earthquakes 2 weeks before. So our first AI tools was from bird migration. And then we improve from the seismograph, wave of the motions, and in fact, the height of the wave. So we realized that AI has now been used as a general tools prior to much more of an enterprise performance grids. So in those reasons, because there's a lot of AI being innovated every day, cyber paper every day, every new features and products being produced every 2 weeks, the public cannot pull up, which is kind of sad. We realize as a regulators, we need to improve this. We realize what would be the best case for our being as an enabler as well. So we do realize when industrial revolution does take place, the first thing that happens was job replacement. So as a government, it's hard to pick and choose where innovation and public goes hand to hand. But we realize that every industrial revolution is not job replacement, but it's something called job regeneration. So there's always been new jobs being created. In fact, more creative jobs are being created. That's, for example, back when there's no, back over past decades, so 10 years ago, when there's something called Instagram and social media, there's no job called social media agency, social media strategist. But because the public has created smartphones and also Instagram accounts, then more creative jobs on social media industry and social media agency was being created. So with those industries coming in mind, there will be much more creative jobs being created as well. So please do use AI wisely, because sometimes AI has been used in a much more frauds, defects, and kind of scary things. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Andreas. It's very insightful. As we are running out of time, that we still have more something to discuss, that we are proceeding to the next session to our panelists, Pak Eric. Pak Eric, this question would be still related with the previous opening speech that about the LLM. While as Kadim's AI and data protection lead, as we can see that you also a cybersecurity expert, how should Indonesia AI governance system prepare for adversarial prompt engineering and jailbreaking tactics, which is sometimes bypass LLM's guardrails? That is the questions for Nova.
Yeah, thank you, Pak. I think this is very good questions, and as we know that from injections, yeah, bypassing LLM guardrails is a common practice nowadays in AI. So I have two perspectives. First, from the government itself. So maybe back to my first questions, the previous questions. So government should prepare the regulations. So what kind of regulation? I think depend on the visions with the government, how we regulate the AI. But at least with the purpose and then is of industry, especially financial service. Why financial service? Because financial service is the most targeted industry in Indonesia. Because a lot of, as maybe Mas Andres mentioned, a lot of fraud happen in Indonesia. Last time I joined international fraud event in Bali, so there are a lot of fraud and with this kind of type of the frauds. And even OJK and BI create certain team task force for fraud, for reporting. So the regulation is they should create at this purpose, and then OJK should create a certain standard. So how about the private sector, like us in private sector? So similar with when we talk about cybersecurity, Pak. So when we develop the system, sometimes we forgot about cybersecurity. So we just deploy, but forgot the cybersecurity. That's why there is a concept of secure by design. So we involve security aspect in our system development life cycle. So here we come privacy. There is privacy by design. So how we embed privacy in the design. So the next thing is AI safety by design. So how we embed AI safety perspective in our system or AI lifecycle development. So maybe if you study about AI lifecycle, there is the concept of AI safety lifecycle. So we embed every security aspect in the lifecycle. So still related to the regulation. So at least the regulation that I expect in the next UU cybersecurity and resilience, at least a company should conduct at minimum AI assessment and should consider the security controls in their AI development. What kind of security control? At least two types. So the common control, like we develop the defense criteria using the tools to defense, to monitor, to defend the incidents, to cyber threat, and then how we assess the vulnerability of the system. Now, if we come to the vulnerability, there is the concept of AI red teaming. Maybe you can just link it, or maybe you just connect me in LinkedIn. See my posting. I post about agentic AI security. So I explain in high level how we secure our AI agent deployment. So I think this is one, because the time is limited. This there is only one. So just the keywords is AI security or AI safety mindset. So later, if there are any questions, just let's ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. As we can see, that the most vulnerable is the humans error. Right. Okay, we go now to the next question to Prof again. How can academic research help shaping enforceable standard in higher red teaming? And especially as a nation and global regulatory bodies still behind the technology curve. As we can see that, as I mentioned earlier, that the rising technology is more rapid than the regulation itself. And please could you share again your perspective about the how would you perspective about the collaborative framework between academia, industries, and also regulator, which is most urgently needed to ensure AI models are aligned with the human-centric approach and democratic values. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So as I already mentioned before, the regulation always lag behind the technology. It's gonna be always like that. I mean, if the technology is there and there is no harm to the people and people are happy, then there is no need to regulate. But if let's say the technology gave a negative impact to the community, then government need to regulate. But when the government need to regulate, it has to be as that the industry can grow, it can give benefit to the people, and also while the government can also protect the people. Now, actually, no, there is nothing new here. During my undergraduate, I studied data warehouse. Now people call it business intelligence. During my undergraduate, I studied virtual reality, and now people call it metaverse. Artificial intelligence. During my undergraduate, I also studied artificial intelligence, but not as magnificent as now with the fast development of the algorithm. Simply because now we have the internet. Simply because now we have the apps to collect data. I mean, artificial intelligence without the data is going to be natural stupidity, right? Why they are actually so smart? Because simply they have the data. That's it. We have the data, we have the enough computing resources, etc. It keeps going and keeps going. Now the question is that if let's say the regulation is not there yet, but technology is there, do we have to create a new regulation as fast as we can? But the question is that while the new regulation is not there, we can also use the previous regulation. So as an example, I had the opportunity to do benchmarking to United States last year, simply financed by the USDA, United States Trade and Development Agency, due to my work for the National Nusantara Capital Authority, and we visited Texas, which is actually that state is actually the place for the technology trial. That place is actually for the sandbox, and then I asked the chairman of that agency, with the current development with autonomous truck, autonomous car, did you develop a new regulation? And it's surprisingly, the question is no. We just use the previous regulation. If let's say the truck or the car hit the people, then actually the owner of the truck or the owner of the car need to be punished. As simple as that. Ethics is already there. Now the question is that now with the negative impact of the AI, then it needs to be regulated. Deepfake, whether it's always negative, no. I mean, when the movie star is actually passed or died, then we can just use the deepfake technology to move on the development of the movie. So at some point, the deepfake technology is good, let's say for the fashion development, let's say for the developing a movie, etc. But when you do that for the social media, and when you do a negative and you bring negative impact to the community, developing a hoax, developing something that actually can harm the people, then it needs to be regulated. When the regulation is not there, actually, what happens online is also we can also use the same regulation in what happens in offline. I mean, if you cannot hit the people offline, you cannot hit online. As simple as that. Now, but with the uses of the technology, simply let's say there is a cyber fraud as mentioned by Parik, etc. Now it has to be regulated. Now the question is that the government cannot do that alone. I mean, with the Undang-Undang KKS mentioned by Parik, Ketahanan and Keamanan Cyber, Cyber Security and Defense, the government, in this case BSSN or let's say Komdiji, cannot do that alone. They need to collaborate with the industry, they need to collaborate with the association, they need to collaborate with the community to have the balance. If it's not there, then I mean the regulation of the technology is really for the benefit of the people itself. And you need to talk to the people for that. I mean, you cannot just simply drop the regulation, put to the people responsibility. That's it. Not like that. I mean, the process of the getting feedback for the people is actually it's there so that all of us can give benefit, can give our view to help shaping the regulation to be best for Indonesia. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Pak Professor. Okay, because we have a very limited time again, we go straight to Pak Dian again. Pak Dian, this is more about your position about the chairman person of the artificial intelligence user associations. What would you like to do as a chairman to promote and to promote the way that you are leading of the transparency and accountability as a frontier corporate models are now becoming more pushing to the boundaries of capability itself. And the other question is what ethical frameworks that technology safeguard must evolve to ensure these powerful tools do not spread disinformation. I think it's been discussed, but just to give a little bit perspective from you. Thank you.
I understand. But it's okay, but for over the past years, I had an opportunity to speak with the university, industry, and ministry also. And we met around 50,000 people, and we learned a lot, exciting and concerning also, because people are just using AI, but they don't know the full range, the full benefit, and the full risk, and the risk of AI. For example, kind of the chatbot that more and more have emotional connection with the youngster and also the teenager has been linked with the suicide that happened in Belgium, a very developed country. And last year, 14 years old, just killed himself because of the suggestion from the chatbot. On the other hand, the MIT researchers find something interesting, where if you use ChatGPT carelessly, it actually will decreasing your ability for critical thinking. So people are rarely asking, when I learn from the students, from the so many people are rarely asking what kind of input that I can give to LLM that will bring dangerous output. Rarely asking something like that. And also people rarely asking, what is the safest time limit to use an artificial intelligence or an LLM without decreasing my ability for critical thinking? Because the brain is very, very interesting. The brain is just shutting down. If you are like right now from 3,000 university in Indonesia, most of the students already use the AI. And what they do is we have a saying like this: SKS, sistem kebut semalam. Yeah? But right now the rector, the lecturer said it's become sistem kebut sekejap, because after the docent, the lecturer said about some work for the student, and then the student instantly finish at the time. So the critical thinking is gone. So that's why we already making some partnership with almost 100 universities to give AI that is not restricted with the curriculum like Professor Udo mentioned. So we will be more agile to give the full range, holistic view on AI to the students. That is what we are doing.
All right, thank you, Pak Dian. Okay, the last one to Pak Andreas for the second questions. As AI systems become increasingly sophisticated, they are also often described as double-edged swords, which is giving the benefits and also the posing risk. So we would like to hear about you because you are an advisor for the governments. What would you like to give the strategy on this about the disinformations and also this the synthetic sideboards? Because what of course the Indonesian government more emphasize that nowadays they are spreading of the disinformation through the media like video or something like that. In managing, how would you like to take this risk of this mitigation? Thank you for that part.
Great, long questions. Two long questions. So it's true. In fact, before I worked in the largest mining in the world, I decided to jump into AI industry. So one of the biggest reasons I jumped into AI industry is because I fear of an AI girlfriend. So it's something funny back when it was called a movie, but it's a future dystopian that's happening in real life. So because we're really attached to technologies, we're really attached to how they perceive us. In fact, they know more than I know myself. In fact, I touch my phone more than I touch my parents. I even touch my phone more than my friends. So the more we realize AI natural revolutions, it's always a bad thing where we are being more attached, where we hold our gadgets more than our children. So with those in mind, the dichotomies have been quite, we call it Pandora box, where it gives us a lot of information. It always helps us in creating easier tasks. But are we really that attached to technologies? It always brings different perspective. And also when we talk about where policy plays a role, let's take example if everyone knows Quora. So Quora is basically like Q&A, kind of like Wikipedia forum. So there was a saying that, hey, how do I make bombs? So who do we blame? The founder of Quora, the moderator, the AI, or the one who's asking questions. So it's always been hard on integrating who to blame for. Is this the AI in the loop, AI outside the loop, or the person itself? So in fact, when we ask how do we make bombs, it has two questions in mind. One, is it for terrorism? Or second, is it for a better usage? In fact, you can make bombs to demolish building, to help in agriculture crops, and in fact in tunneling caves. So it's not necessarily bad, but in hindsight, it has always been different, perceived differently on publics. That's how deepfakes and even frauds have been happening because our access to AI in altering face, in altering voices, has always changed us. So we do realize with the more implementations, it has a downside. So I always mention from the previous session before was please use AI wisely. And thank you so much for World AI Show. Thank you for all the participants here, all the sponsors, and Pak Joko Umar for this. And with my due respect to all distinguished panelists.
Okay. Do we have still time for one or two questions maybe? Oh, okay. We are regretfully that we don't have any more time to have a conduct Q&A with the audience. Yes. Only 1%, real possible. Do you have a question or one question maybe from the audience? Okay, please just make with question straight to one of our panelists.
Okay, thank you. Okay, my name is Halil, and I'm from Narasio Data. We are a startup company based in Surabaya, and we are focused on big data analytics and big data management.
Okay.
So I don't know. These questions is belong to Andreas or Eric, but I would like to ask the questions. I heard that ComDigi is now preparing the AI roadmap. So, what are the key strategies to implement this to regional or local government? Because we all know that implementing regulations in local level is quite challenging. So that's my question. Thank you.
Okay, please, Pak Andres or Pak Eric will answer the question.
Yeah, so first, Mas Andres can add.
Okay.
Yeah. So maybe for the local regulation, what you mean is local regulation Indonesia ya Pak ya? Okay. Yeah. So the strategi. So as I mentioned that for now the directions of the from the ComDigi is after we complete our works in the team which I and Mas Andreas there, but we are in different team Mas Andreas for the talent. I want the investment. So what we get is certain publication but books but buku putih. So the output of the buku putih it will contain the strategy updated strategy of our Stranas. So in 2020 we have Stranas AI from that we revise the roadmap and then we create buku putih which contain the updated strategy for the AI. So once the book is launched, yeah, and then the next one is our research paper, yeah, will be adopted by ComDG. They will create as academic and also create teaching principle. So this is the procedure to create regulation. This I mentioned is preference. Yeah. So this is for now that we know, yeah, because we are still in progress to complete the strategy, the roadmap. So maybe I cannot mention too much, yeah, because too early, yeah, to mention to be mentioned. This is for me. Thank you. Maybe Mas Andreas can.
Still time. Okay. So being involved with Corica, I was part of the team as well. So the highlight was when we have Shranas and also the UNESCO ethics guideline, it brings guidelines for us because as a public, it's hard for us to create what's the perfect condition for us. So the climate keep on changing. In fact, back when we created Stranas, there was something called generative AI. There's no ChatGPT. Then when ChatGPT has come in 2022, it just suddenly changed. So in fact, when we have these AI roadmaps, we want it to be much more international recognizable. So we have this discussion in bilateral approach. So imagine when you have autonomous vehicles, who do you blame? In fact, do you want to ride aeroplanes where it was autopilot, or do you want someone where there's a pilot? So it has always bring different perspective. So those roadmaps was basically we try to bring a lot of industries, think tanks, consultants to bring in and pick what's the best scenario, what would be the best guideline for us. So it has a lot of different use cases, but it will be shown publicly on August or September. So I apologize where I cannot share this publicly because I've signed an NDA. So please wait around 1 month or 2 months after. So thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Please give applause to our panelists. So at the end of this closing session, that it is important that the development of AI is as much important as our awareness and the technology itself. So for the users, the responsibility is starting from your fingertips, either you are doing for the personal or your working environments. Okay, please once again, thank you for your participation, great audience, and please enjoy the rest of the press program. Thank you.